black belt, you finally made it. We're almost done. So now we're going to talk about the functional movement aspect. You've done all the hard work to try to get the mobility and the stability in line so that you can do these things. This is just going to be some prep work to get you ready to do a squat. So I have Haley here. We have an exercise ball, a wall, and we have her on her hands and knees. What this is going to do is see if we can actually load the spine when she pushes her butt into the ball, which is into the wall. I want to see what happens here. Okay, go ahead and push again, and then let it round a little bit. That's what you do not want to happen, or the other way, push and her back arches. That's typically what's going to happen. So you want it to be nice and straight, kind of like what we talked about before, like if you have that stick there and you're just pushing into the ball. Now see here, we're looking at her hip angle. This ball is kind of a medium-sized ball, so this is a pretty deep squat for her. If you're not there yet with hips, say you start to break pretty soon the moment you push into this ball, you might need a bigger ball, okay? Once you do pretty well and you can get pretty low into it, you might even need a smaller ball. So for here, you just come to the end, you hold it, and then a few nice deep breaths. I want you to do 3. I want you to brace underneath the shield, behind the shield, what we call it, to see if breathing, all of a sudden, you break posture and position here. So this is really just trying to educate your spine to have a load on it before you pick up any weight. This next one is a mountain climber. A lot of you guys will do this at the gym as a form of exercise, which is a fantastic one. But if you are terrible at your planks or your bird dogs and you take away one limb and you start breaking, your spine starts curving and rounding or whatever, it's a no-no. So we're going to try to do it correctly. So what she's going to do, she's going to come to a tall push-up position, making sure the spine doesn't move, especially that lumbar spine, chin down, head up, so you want her head to be in a good neutral position. And then now I would always suggest going slow at first, okay? You're just bringing your knee, perfect. Make sure this does not move, okay? I always tell people, hey, you're a ninja now. I want you to be quiet. I shouldn't hear you from across the gym doing this exercise. It should be nice and fluid and soft. Now if you want, you can do the Spider-Man one where you bring the knee to the elbow. There you go. If not, you're just going to jam the lower back up, okay? Now, you saw how she was nice and lined, so don't have the butt too high and don't have the butt too low, okay? Now when you get better at it, of course, you can add some speed to it. Perfect. Okay, this next one is how to do the squat, but training it from an actual standing position instead of on your hands and knees. So right here we have Haley's feet elevated just a few inches off the ground. This is going to help take the ankles out of the equation first. Okay, now what she's going to do first is have her hands over her head and do a toe touch. She's going to bend over, touch her toes. Once you're here, she's going to bring her butt as far as she can down to the ground. Here's the squat. Now to kind of get that overhead squat position, get your thoracic spine, she's going to raise one arm over her head and then the other arm over her head. Pause for a second, then stand up. Okay, then since her hands are over her head again, she's going to do it again. Toe touch, squat down, one hand up, other hand up, stand up. Do that about 5 times. This is a motor control drill. Okay, now I'm going to make it a little harder for her. She's going to step forward. I'm going to remove the heel lift. Same thing. Hands over the head, then touch the toes, butt down, hand over head, hand over head, stand up. That's what I want you to try to do. Work on that squat. Now, wherever you feel limited at, man, I felt really good with the ones with my heel elevated. You should definitely work on that calf, that plantar fascia, Achilles area, get that tissue to move with the foam roller, ball, whatever. Do a banded stretch, try to get that ankle to move. If you feel like, man, my thoracic spine, I can't do it when I raise my arm over my head, maybe open up that mid-back thoracic spine, get some rotation there, even hang from a pull-up bar to get the lats to open up. That squat, overhead squat position's got a lot of parts moving in that one. So if this one's there to kind of see where you're limited at. So pay attention to that. Okay, now we're going to talk about a lunge. Another fantastic move, but a lot of people do it wrong. So what Haley's going to do is do a nice long lunge where the stride length is pretty high. And what that is when she does that, she's having to arch a lot in the lower back. And if you don't have very good hip mobility, it's going to make your technique look terrible. So what I'm going to have you do is come on back up. She's going to do a drastically shorter length for her lunge step. When she goes down, the knee, when it touches the ground, should be pretty close to the heel. That way, if you have hip flexor issues, you're not going to extend the back a lot. okay? We want to try to keep the core engaged, and honestly, that spine is nice and straight, and go straight down. That is perfect. Now, what is a great move you could do to help with this? You can take a kettlebell or dumbbell or whatever. You're going to put it one arm over your head. Perfect. She did it the hard way, which is she did the bells up position, which is fantastic for stability. Or you can do it the traditional way where she has her wrist nice and straight there. And then whenever she does this, she's going to put her left leg forward if she can. Good. Now with this one, it's there again like that Frankenstein squat. That weight is going to go forward, and so it's making you keep a nice, strong core. Now, you can do a walking lunge and not have to switch hands. It's just based off of the cross crawl movement, you want to try to have one arm up and go down with that other leg. Okay, have fun. Okay, now we're going to make the lunge a little bit more functional. So, when you're walking, running, that thoracic spine needs to move and rotate. When you kind of look at fascial attachment, when that thoracic spine rotates, it also keeps that leg stable. So if you're having a hard time keeping that knee from wiggling in and out, or you're really collapsing that arch, this is a really good exercise you could do. So she just got a kettlebell, she's gonna hold it like a ball. What you're gonna do is you take that nice, good lunge step, not too hard, and whatever leg she pulls down, she's going to rotate this way, okay? Then you can either stand back up or you can walk with it. Okay, now we're gonna add the weight to it. Now, we are a big component of front squat type mentality because it's more functional that way versus putting something on your back and doing a squat with it. Now, if that's your Olympic lift or that's something you really want to work on for strength, of course do it. We're looking for risk versus reward exercises. So I want a lower risk, higher reward exercise. Front squat will give you that. Now, we're going to do different varying types of front squats. First one, she's just going to kind of hold it the traditional way. This is the goblet squat. You put your show it there, thumbs through it, flip it upside down, and this is the preferred way I want you to do it because her chin should stay touching the bottom, the flat end of the kettlebell. Neck stays tall, okay? Then whenever she does it, she's going to set her hips back and then just descend down. The good thing about the weight being on the front of you, it's going to want to pull your weight forward, and so you have to work hard to keep that spine erect. Now, if you're having a hard time with this one, that's okay. Flip it around and hold it like a cannonball. There you go. Now, with this one, you have a little bit more control at the bottom. So you feel like you're leaning back. I just want you to hold that kettlebell out in front of you just a little bit to help balance you out until you can either start to work on your ankle mobility or you're understanding your weight shift in your hips. Okay, so this one's a modification for the traditional goblet squat. This next one is a Frankenstein squat. This is a great modification to a front squat to kind of get you ready for that weight to make your technique is okay. So we are starting off here with just a PVC pipe going across the front part of the shoulders. Your arms out like a Frankenstein. She's going to descend into her squat. What this is doing is pulling down on the front shoulder, so you're having to maintain a nice spinal thoracic stiffness is what we're looking for. So I like it here because it keeps that head in a good position so you can't really look up, because if not you'll get choked by the bar. So this is a good personal training move without a personal trainer there. If you do it wrong, the bar will let you know. There again, if you have weird squat tendencies, still with this one, put a little lift in the heel just to take out any ankle issues, mobility problems you might have with this. So that's a good rule of thumb. If your ankles are still not where you need to be, but you're still going to do the squats anyway, put something underneath your heel because that should clean out your squat technique. And then we'll work on the mobility of the ankle as you go along, because that sometimes will take some time. And then you'll be able to hopefully do it with no shoes on. Okay? So try this one, and the next thing you do, put a bar on it. Try it again, then add some weight to it. This is a fantastic one to keep your core engaged the whole time. Here's a Bulgarian split squat. So this is going to be a pretty hard move because most people think of doing their squats with two legs, which is a great move. But we're going to really try to isolate the musculature in the down leg, because 90% of the weight should be going here. And this should just be a kickstand. You have about 10% of the weight on the back leg. Now for this one, everyone wants to know how high should this back leg be? Because if you're going to a gym, you'll have a bench most of the time, because most of the time they don't have the Bulgarian split squat actual machine, which is just a big roll, and you can just make it go up or down, kind of depending on the leg height that you. But this one, your foot, you should be able to wiggle it back and forth. Most of the weight should kind of be on the front part of the foot. Okay, now, so if it's too tall, you're going to feel more of a stretch in this hip flexor and you're almost kind of be leaning forward. We don't want that. We should just be, like I said, a kickstand here to help hold you. Now, the other leg in front, this should be just like your squat leg, what we were talking about before. So your leg isn't narrow, it's kind of out a little bit, just like if you had your legs out a little bit with your squat. Toes should be angled out just a hair. Now when you're here, we want to make sure that your foot's not too far out in front. Like more like a lunge, we want to be able to start a little bit behind parallel shin angle. So when you're here, Haley's going to drive this weight into her heel and then just lean forward just a hair, and now she's just going to stand straight on up. Perfect. And now descend all the way back down. Great. Now, preferably, this is on a roller chair because this is the only thing we had of height-wise that was great for Haley, because if not, it would have been too much for her of a hip flexor stretch. It's not our goal for this. Here again is a very high reward exercise and a low risk because there's not a lot of weight on the spine. Now if you want to add a little bit of extra to it for the weight component, you can have like a dumbbell on both sides of you, or you can do your front squat, goblet squat type position, just really isolating that leg. The only thing we want to make sure you're watching is when you stand up, what is this knee doing? Is your knee going in or is it staying out? Okay, so focus on that front leg, 90% of the weight. Now descend down. Perfect.